Hello everyone, welcome back from the break and welcome to the final couple of sessions of the day. Our next speaker will delve into the regulatory aspects of balancing the risks of AI with its potential for innovation. Marcus Bokkerink is chair of the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA. The CMA is responsible for both competition and consumer protection and is currently conducting a review of AI foundation models. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Marcus Bokkerink.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak today about protecting consumers and protecting competition in a world that's increasingly powered by digital and AI. So I'm Marcus Bokkerink, I'm chair of the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority. So we're the UK's principal competition and consumer protection authority, and we're an independent body accountable to Parliament. The reason we exist is to help people, businesses and the UK economy by promoting competition and tackling unfair behaviour. Now what that means is that it's our job to make sure that people can be really confident that they're getting great choices and a fair deal without being misled. And it means that it's our job to help fair dealing, competitive businesses to be free to innovate and thrive. And I think it's helpful to remind ourselves a little bit first why those two sides of the same coin, effective competition and protecting consumers, are so important. And then I'll talk about what fostering competition and protecting consumers means in a world, in a digital economy in practice, and I'll focus more on what we're doing today than possible futures. And then I'll talk about what at the CMA we think that looks like in a world that's increasingly powered by AI in that economy, in that digital economy. And I use the word economy on purpose because our remit at the CMA is very squarely focused on enabling competition and protecting consumers from commercial harm. Online safety, which includes cyberbullying, illegal content, harmful speech, that's looked after by Ofcom, who of course we cooperate and work together with very closely in the Digital Regulation Cooperation Forum. And it's one of the first things that the UK did is to put together the different regulators touching digital markets in the same joined-up group, which is one of the benefits of how we look at things here. And I hope you'll be here tomorrow for the DRCF panel. At all events, as far as my remarks are concerned, as I said, I'll focus as much on what we're doing today to promote competition, tackle harms in this environment, as well as some plans for the future. Now first, a quick recap of why competition and consumer protection are so important. Now, over 30 years, I've had the privilege of working with lots of businesses in all shapes and sizes, and I've seen repeatedly how those two elements, vibrant competition, effective protection of consumers' interests, they go hand in hand. If markets are open, where there is genuine competition and companies play by the rules, the players in a market, whether it's supermarkets, whether it's vets, whether it's social media companies, whether it's search engines, whether it's foundation model developers, many areas of CMA work. If those markets are truly open, if there are multiple players genuinely competing, then the players have the incentives to do exactly that, and we see them do exactly that. They compete hard. They compete hard for our trust. They innovate hard. And they do that to bring us the best choices, or their customers the best choices, the best quality, the best service, the best prices, and continuously improve. And they compete above all for our trust and loyalty. But where a dominant few corner the market or engage in unfair behaviour, in harmful practices, the opposite happens. The innovators and the fair dealing challenger businesses, they're stopped in their tracks. And we end up down a road of limited choice, deteriorating quality and service, and ever-rising prices. And that's why, to deliver the good outcomes for the people and the innovating businesses that we serve, that is why we are so determined to protect both sides of that coin. Protect consumers, tackling the misleading practices, which are almost like the symptoms, if you like, and tackling the root cause, which is making sure that there are conditions for very healthy, very dynamic competition. So let me move to the more specific context of digital opportunities and risks and how the CMA is taking action. And AI is an important part of this. Clearly, artificial intelligence is part of a much broader force that has been shaping our economy for quite some decades, namely the ever-accelerating technology revolution and the multitude of new and often disruptive business models that these bring. And they're clearly transforming how we live, how we work, how we do business. And there's no doubt that the digital revolution brings enormous benefits. So much of the world's innovation and creativity available immediately. There are so many new and more effective ways to learn, to research, to create, to communicate, to innovate, to buy and to sell. These are all tremendous benefits, and they're all can be turbocharged by the promise of artificial intelligence. But so we need to ensure that those opportunities and those benefits really do come to pass, really do benefit consumers, really do benefit innovators today and of the future, and really do benefit fair-dealing businesses. And we need to ensure that those benefits are not eroded over time. And that's why, as a competition and markets authority, we've been adapting quite explicitly and consciously how we protect consumers and how we protect competition in that world. So let me start with protecting consumers, and indeed businesses as customers, from unfair behavior. So our work here includes, for example, cracking down on fake reviews, which cause hundreds of millions of pounds worth of purchases every year, cracking down on what are so-called dark patterns, which are intentionally deceptive or manipulative design choices that are in a way forced on us when we search or shop or interact or do business online. These design features of online architecture can be quite subtle, and they steer us towards some predefined outcomes. Features like pressure selling, or drip pricing, or exaggerating the benefits of sharing certain amounts of data, or some quite intrusive default settings, or misleading opt-outs, being trapped in ever-repeating subscriptions, and hidden advertising. So these are all design choices which exploit our psychology and vulnerabilities when we're online as consumers, and they nudge us towards decisions that aren't fully our own and aren't necessarily in our best interests. And the costs of these, of course, are significant because misleading or deceptive practices are causing billions in net detriment across the economy. Billions spent on things we didn't really want, didn't need, or regretted buying, and quite a lot of time spent trying to fix the problem. And so that's why one of the priorities that we set in our new strategy earlier this year is a continuous program of enforcement action and education to protect consumers from fake reviews, from pressure selling, and from misleading online choice architecture across all retail sectors. And this includes some open enforcement cases that are going on right this moment into those practices, multiple guides to business on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of the law, and of course our online rip-off, tip-off campaign, which raised consumer awareness and which encouraged people to tell the CMA about misleading online sales practices. And of course, given the potential of AI to turbocharge all that and turbocharge those very same harms, it is really important to tackle these things now, early on, before they get strengthened. And that's why we are enforcing so hard the current laws and looking forward to a strengthening of the laws, which is something I'll get back to later. So that's on the consumer protection side. Let me now turn about actions we're taking to tackle the root cause of some of this harm, which is by ensuring dynamic competition in the digital markets. Because it's so much easier for a perpetrator to engage in harmful activity if there are very few, if any, alternatives for a consumer or for a business customer to choose when they're looking to search or design or buy or sell or socialize online. And these are all markets where AI can have quite a major role in the future. Whenever there are situations of limited choice, often very large and often quite powerful companies who are responsible for that being the standard behavior, they become more dominant, they become more entrenched, and their behavior becomes more of a standard. So new entrants and challengers who might offer us more transparent or more open, competitive alternatives, they're sort of squeezed out or maybe never even get off the ground. And without competition from such challengers, what's the motivation for players with entrenched market power to do the right thing and clean some of this up for consumers? So that's why we have been and will continue to be really quite vigilant in protecting competition in digital markets. So recent and ongoing examples include market probes into online platforms, into digital advertising, which highlighted the competition limits in search, in social media, and digital advertising. We, and also the European Commission and the US Department of Justice, all have cases underway to investigate these issues. We're also investigating the terms and conditions that govern developers' access to app stores, and whether Amazon uses data collected from the third-party sellers on its marketplace to unfairly benefit its retail arm. And of course, we're also working with Google to ensure that the changes they're making to their privacy policy don't unfairly advantage its own advertising business. Now, in addition to those competition probes and investigations, because of the very rapid speed at which these digital and AI-powered markets develop, it's important to take a very forward-looking approach to preventing competition concerns from developing in the first place. And the way to do that is through very effective merger control. And so a recent example is the decision we made on Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, which resulted in Microsoft divesting the online cloud streaming rights to Activision's games for the next 15 years to a rival. And the reason for that is to ensure that that fast-growing cloud gaming market remains open to competition and remains open to consumer choice. Now, to make us even more effective at doing our job in the future, Parliament has been considering new legislation, the Digital Markets and Competition Bill, and Competition and Consumer Bill. So in a nutshell, this will strengthen our ability to champion consumers and protect them from commercial harm across all markets, in particular through direct enforcement and, if it's proportionate and necessary, through higher fines. The bill also addresses quite a few challenges that have dogged traditional competition law approaches to keeping digital markets competitive and open to future innovators. In particular, where one or few powerful firms have been able to establish what is called substantial and entrenched market power. And the bill does this by avoiding overly burdensome, rigid regulations which could impede innovation and growth. So the regime is designed to be highly tailored to different business models and different companies, highly flexible, highly proportionate, and characterized by ongoing constructive dialogue with the very companies who hold the substantial and entrenched market power, who will be subject, if the bill passes law, to codes of conduct that can be enforced. And that means that those characteristics means that it is quite well suited to help us guide markets towards positive outcomes from transformational technologies such as AI, while mitigating the harms before they occur. So both elements, the consumer element and the digital and competition element, would be quite a step change and very good news for people, for consumers, for businesses, and for the economy. So let's look ahead at the potential future development of AI and how we can apply everything that we've learned so far to that future in terms of protecting consumers and protecting competition. So it's clear that artificial intelligence is the latest and arguably the greatest wave of technological revolution we've yet encountered. And as with all the previous technology breakthroughs, it holds real promise to deliver transformational benefits for the way we learn, the way we create, the way we interact, the way we do business. And just as it can bring very many positives, it is entirely possible that it could also supercharge some of the harms that I've talked about earlier to competition, to consumers in digital markets. And let me give you just 4 examples. So first, search algorithms. Search algorithms or answers that rank or give us answers can be tremendously useful. But we've seen in the past, whether it's in hotel booking sites or other examples, where those answers can be distorted by facts that don't help us get the best products or services, but are distorted by factors such as how much commission does the site get from the different options they're showing us. A personalized AI ranking or a personalized AI answer could get even cleverer at seeming to get us the best deal or looking really personalized to just us, but actually being driven by which product is the most profitable or not the most useful for us. The second is reviews. one of the benefits of the internet and the digital world is that we can all buy, from, sell things to people all around the country, all around the world, with ease, and we rely on reviews to make very informed choices. And unfortunately, fake reviews are very endemic online. There are companies who sell fake reviews as a service, and that means two things. One is individual consumers clearly are misled in buying the wrong products and getting the wrong service, but also all the many honest, fair-dealing businesses who want to just compete on the merits in a level playing field, they suffer because fake reviews undermine the magic of competitive markets, which is that the genuinely best products win out. Now at the CMA, we're already using tools powered by AI technologies to detect fake reviews. And wouldn't it be great if companies use such tools to take down the fake reviews before they even hit the customer or the consumer, and before they cause these problems? Well, without guardrails, it may be just as likely that AI will be used to generate more fake reviews more quickly and more convincingly. The third example is advertising, which is clearly important, part of doing business, multi-channel, online, offline. And targeted advertising has been a really key part of progress on the internet. When it works well, businesses with compelling products can find people who really want to buy those products or services. And AI can really help with that targeting, perhaps even in ways that actively protects privacy online. But for example, while we at the CMA have been able to use AI to detect hidden advertising in endorsements on social media, AI could also be used by others for more pernicious purposes, perhaps helping to spot when our judgment is less good, when we're tired or more inclined to make an impulse purchase, or simply vulnerable. And so again, AI can supercharge the harms that I spoke about before. Fourth and last example is inaccurate information. AI foundation models can get things wrong, and no one has yet worked out how to reduce the error rate to zero. But the chatbots they power sound very convincing. So perhaps we will all learn to know what to expect from an AI chatbot and heed the warnings that they're not always 100% accurate. But again, without competitive pressure, what's the incentive for companies to drive down that error rate and be really clear to us about the limitations of these models? So let me talk a little bit about how we are further adapting and further strengthening our approach to markets for AI models themselves and the uses of these models, and what more is to come. So early this year, as you all know, the government issued a white paper articulating the UK's proposed approach to regulating AI, including some cross-sectoral principles for each of the regulators to implement through their existing enforcement regimes. And clearly at the CMA, we've also considered this, and we've thought about how to apply it to our remit, which is protecting consumers and promoting competition. So in the immediate term, we've made very clear that we'll continue to be very vigilant for digital and AI-related breaches of existing consumer laws and existing competition laws. So to protect both consumers and to protect businesses from unfair commercial practices, from unfair terms, and to foster competition and protect competition. And where we find breaches, as always, we won't hesitate to act. But that on its own will not be enough. One of the clearest lessons, I think, from past experience in broader digital markets is that the most effective path to markets, to healthy competition, to protecting consumers, is to prevent entrenched market power and to prevent harms and a practice of harmful behavior from becoming a standard in the first place. And so given the speed of developments in generative AI, in foundation models, and in their use by businesses for different products, for different services, and ultimately their use by consumers, the CMA acted quite promptly to do an initial review of AI foundation models and their use, to understand the opportunities and risks of AI for competition and consumer protection, but also to propose a set of principles that can guide the development of these markets in a positive way. And this report was published last month. So in brief, we explored quite a broad spectrum of potential outcomes and scenarios for the development of AI foundation models, for the markets for those, and for their uses by businesses downstream. And some of these scenarios had very positive outcomes for competition, for consumers, and some of them had very negative ones that would concern all of us. And so we can't predict at this stage the exact way a market will develop, but we can be pretty confident to understand what are the drivers, the conditions that will push markets towards the more positive outcomes. And that really led to the crux of the recommendation of the work, which is defining quite clearly the conditions that need to be in place for the AI market and their users to deliver the more positive outcomes for businesses, for consumers, for the economy, than the negative ones. And translating those into some 7 proposed tangible principles that can guide the market and the players towards those outcomes. Now, implementing principles like that has to be a global effort because the issues are global and cross-border, so are the players. And so we're now in a process of engaging quite broadly with the industry and with our international peers to define them. So what are our proposed principles? And I'll go through them very quickly. So the first is access on fair terms without undue restrictions to the key inputs that companies need to build AI models, and that means fair access to computing power, fair access to data, for example. Fair access to markets for the innovators of the future who will continue to push at the heels of the incumbents who are building strong positions now. The second is diversity, which means a variety of business models to develop and use AI rather than having one type of model. And our third, fourth, and fifth principles are all designed to keep competitive tension up so as to deliver a very positive outcome to the business customers and consumers so that they can have a range of options in selecting or using or switching between different AI models and the services they support, without friction, without lock-in. So our principles here are sufficient choice for customers using foundation models, and that could be through APIs or plugins or accessing them via partnerships. Genuine flexibility for the customers to switch, to use multiple models or multiple environments at the same time according to their needs. And that might require some form of interoperability and the ability to port data. And then finally, fair dealing, which means that customers can have the confidence that when they're choosing a model or a service, it is the best product for them, that is not as a result of anti-competitive behavior such as self-preferencing, tying or bundling with other things that leverage or entrench the market power of the provider. And our final 2 principles, transparency and accountability, bring us back to the consumer protection side across the piece. So we know from research that trust in AI will be the key to us all realizing its benefits. And we also know that vigorous competition is more likely to create that race to the top of consumer trust rather than a race to the bottom. And we know that consumer confidence depends on receiving reliable, accurate information and fair treatment, including from the various AI model-based services. And that also means having a clear idea for who's accountable, who's responsible when something goes wrong. And so how do we create that outcome? Again, here are a couple of principles. One is we're going to apply transparency for consumers and businesses around whether or not a model is powered by AI, the risks and the limitations, so we could all make informed choices. And the second is accountability for the developers of models, but also for the companies who deploy them, accountability for the output that they provide to customers. And that means having appropriate safeguards and making sure that responsibility is clearly allocated and redress mechanisms are in place. So a quick whistle-top tour of the principles that we're hoping to apply through our various tools and powers over time. So as I hope you've gathered, personally but also as a body, we're very passionate about the tremendous opportunities of digital and AI, but also about tackling the harms before they become entrenched. And that's why this is quite a watershed moment for us, and that's why we're very focused on the fact that early pro-competitive, pro-consumer action, as well as regulation that builds on the principles, can help us realize the important benefits that we've just highlighted without, or at least by mitigating the harm. So I'm really happy and keen to be part of an institution that can help us do that. Thank you for your time.